Okay, so what we're going to go over now is understanding iron condors and talking about picking our wings for them. And in order to do this, we need to think about like, what are we really covering in bronze? The idea for bronze is buying volatility and selling volatility. If we want to buy volatility, the structure we talk about in bronze is the long straddle. And for selling volatility, it's the iron condor. And we're going to talk about why that is right now as a starting point for us. So let's say we have the payoff graph, right? Which is like kind of what you see on Thinkorswim, right? So this is like 0% payoff, or $0 return. This may be like 100. This is minus 100. And we'll draw two of them here. So we have that one, and then we have this one. It's the same graph. If we buy volatility, our P&L looks something like this, where the stocks here right now, we buy at the money. We're paying for the position up front, right? So maybe we're paying, we pay like $80 up front, and now we have this position on. And if the stock moves in either direction, the more it moves, the more we're going to make, right?
Right.
And this range here, this is the basically market implied move for this trade. So we're looking at a stock, we're saying, okay, this is 30 days to expiration on Apple. We're paying $80 right now. And that means our break-evens are, whatever that is a percentage of the stock either way. We have our break-evens here. And these break-evens over the next 30 days, market is basically saying stock will move somewhere in this range. If it moves more than that range, that means the realized volatility was greater than implied, and we're going to make money. When we're selling volatility, though, right? And so the last thing to note about this is we have a defined risk, $80. We are not going to lose more than our $80 if this thing doesn't move at all. And that's why we just have the straddle. Like, we wouldn't come here and do like a reverse iron condor. We wouldn't do this, because when we're long volatility, we want the potential that this thing goes exponential, right? So we don't do the iron condor here.
Yeah.
The reason we teach the iron condor, though, for when you want to sell volatility is because this is the bronze level education. And in bronze level education, we are under the assumption that we are still learning. Now, what is important to know about learning is that mistakes are expensive in the market. If you make a mistake, you will pay for it. The market is very unforgiving. So we structure a trade that allows you to still put on a short volatility position. But if we look at it, right, but with protected loss. So if we look at it, it would look something like this, right? Iron condor.
Yep.
Now, what is an iron condor? The key piece to understand about the iron condor is there's two pieces to this trade. There is the main trade, and then there is the protection. It's almost like you're selling insurance and then you're buying reinsurance in case there's a really big move.
Right.
The main trade is this. The main trade is actually this. Exactly like this one, you are doing the opposite. You are selling a straddle. This is when you think it's cheap. This is when you think it's expensive. You're buying a straddle when it's cheap. You're selling a straddle when it's expensive. For myself, for example, I don't do iron condors because these wings that you buy, they cost money.
Right.
They cost money. So there's other ways that I go about controlling for my risk. Like, I'm more confident in the trades that I'm finding. I scale down my positions so that if there is a really big move, it's almost as if the loss that I'd want to have with those wings is kind of similar to that. But the benefit is I'm not paying for those wings, meaning I'm getting the whole premium, meaning meaning I have more margin for error as one. If the straddle is going for $10 and I sell it at $10 and I think it's worth $7, I have $3 expected value that I can aim to capture. But if I pay $1.50 for the wing, there's only $1.50. So it makes my margin for error a little bit smaller and my expected return smaller when I am correct. But the benefit is maybe that I sleep a little bit better at night, right? Because I have the wings, right? I have the wings here. So the important thing to remember is this, right? The wings are secondary to the straddle. The main trade is you are selling a straddle. You can never forget that. And the wings are a little bit subjective into where we're going to do them. And it has to do with our willingness to embrace risk on this trade. And here's what I mean. Let's clear this. and start up a new board here. Right, so we're gonna draw the same thing again. And we'll put our main trade on to start, right? We have the straddle. We'll make it a little bit smaller. We have the straddle. Okay. This is our main trade. We're selling the straddle here. We think volatility is expensive. Let's say it's going for $10. We think it's worth $7. Okay. But we're still learning. We kind of want to, control our risks and see how this plays out. We want to buy some wings. Well, what if we bought our wings right here? Right at this strike. Or what if we bought them at this strike? Right. So now the wings are like down here. Or what if we bought them at this strike? Now the wings are way out here. How do we know where to do it?
Yeah, I think it just increases our risk as we go further away, right?
Well, it increases our risk, but if let's say we buy them here, right? Remember, we sold this for $10. These wings might cost us like a lot of money.
Yeah,
Right? They might cost us like $5.
Right.
All of a sudden, we're now getting only $5. Right.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do is we need to say, okay, the wings are an expense. They cost us money. That is it. We are actually doing the same thing. You know how we're selling the straddle to people who maybe want protection? What we're actually buying is a strangle. A strangle is the same thing as a straddle, except with different strikes. So it's not at the money. Maybe it's like out the money on both sides. So what we're buying is something like this. And then what happens is at those points, they neutralize.
Yeah.
And because we paid for them, it brings this in. Right? So now our max P&L is lower, but we also have a capped loss. Make sense?
Yep.
So you could literally sell at the money, go one strike out and buy wings. But because you're doing that, the range is so tight, it'd be almost impossible to make money. You're almost like just buying and selling the same thing. And I'll do one more thing to clarify this for you, right? So if we talk about what options are really giving us, right? If we look at a distribution graph here, where let's say this is a 0% move, this is a 5% move to the upside, and this is a 5% move to the downside. And we're basically saying, how frequently do these moves happen? And we're looking at XYZ stock, okay? Random stock.
Right.
The options market, the whole market, look forward to the future and tries to say, what is the likelihood of different sizes? And let's assume this is actually like the S&P, right? Let's say it's not random, it's SPY.
Yeah,
Okay?
I've been trading that SPY only right now at the moment.
Well, what would this look like? It might look something like this. Where the most frequent move is a small up move. But if we're going to get a big move, it's probably going to be to the downside. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's say we decide we're going to go out and sell volatility here. So we're basically selling, let's say, when we go and we sell the straddle, right? We sell the straddle. What we are actually selling is this distribution. We're selling this to someone and we're saying, hey, like, we think that the likelihood of this is lower. The odds of this is a little bit higher. Maybe we think it looks like that. So we're selling the black line to people. Right, so I'll draw a black line on this. Right? And the reason we're selling the black line is we think it looks more like the yellow line.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to see more smaller moves than people expect. And the likelihood of these bigger moves is lower than the market's implying. The implied is more than what we think it'll realize. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we do. But now we go out and we say, hey, we want to actually hedge this position. So we're going to do it by buying wings. Remember, we're selling all of this to someone right now, right? We're selling all of this. Right? So let's say we come in and we sell here. This is obviously not a perfect example, like from a stats perspective, but I think it logically will make sense. We sell here, but then we go and we buy right here. When someone buys like the put for the downside, this whole thing here, this is what they wanted protection from. It's these risks of these big moves that people are trying to get that protection from.
Okay.
But now all we're selling them is this.
Yeah.
And remember, there's no free money. So if all we're selling someone now is this, why are we going to get paid? We are not
Correct.
actually holding the risk anymore that we initially sought out to take. This is why what we need to do is we need to actually go at least way further out, maybe here. Where, okay, we say like the ultra far tail, we don't want to hold, but there's still a lot of risk in the middle here. So we're still selling something that someone may want protection from.
Mhm.
And this is why we need to be very cautious with how close we put our wings to the strikes that we're selling. I recommend going like 2 times the straddle price out at least. And don't even think about the wings as like something that you may make money on someday or something like that. They're just an expense of doing business, right? So we want to keep our expense as low as possible while still giving us the protections that we want.
Yeah.
We have to do all that with the consciousness of we are getting paid for selling this risk.
Yeah. And this is done
Right.
like at the point, like at the time when the options are really like we have to short the options, right?
Yes. So we'd be shorting these ones here and we'd be
Yeah.
buying these ones here, right? Long these ones.
Yeah.
So what might be interesting for you to do just in a paper account for you to see how it plays out, put on 2 trades. Put on SPY, for example, if that's what you're trading right now,
Mhm.
sell a straddle.
Yeah.
And then track that straddle and then go and sell an iron condor with a very, very tight wing. So you sell the at the money and then you go maybe like 1 strike out and buy a strangle. And then what it'll do is you'll be able to see like, oh wait, okay, like at a very extreme example, here's how these 2 different things play out. Maybe
Mhm.
do a third one where you go 1 straddle price out and just
Yeah.
see how these different positions actually play out
Yeah.
and track them in your trade journal. So it's like, okay, here's where I entered, here's where I'm exiting, like here's how my P&L is evolving, and you'll see the different scenarios sort of play out. And I think that will really help you understand the wings. You know, as you get into the silver education, you're going to learn about skew, which is going to even further change your mind about these wings a little bit, which is these over here might be more expensive than these even.
Hmm.
So you might be actually selling this because you think it's expensive, and then buying this, which you already think is expensive, but it's even more expensive than you thought.
Hmm. Okay.
And so that's the general idea behind like understanding picking your wings, sort of the rationale behind why you want to be careful with them and why we teach them at the start, right?
Yeah.
In the end of the day, it allows you to sell volatility without taking on the exponential loss potential that comes with selling the straddle naked. At the same time, though, you are paying for these, which means it decreases your edge. You're lowering your expected value potentially over the long run. And in the end of the day, as you keep going further and further, you're probably going to want to drop the wings and find other ways to manage your risk. But since
Yeah.
we're just learning now, this would be the way to go about it.
Okay. And anything about the expiration, like how far we have to, because these are mostly during the earnings